But again, you got to see it. You're a production guy, Jody. You got to see
yeah.
it. They haven't done anything.
Production. He had more production in college than any player in the National Football.
Yeah, but that's college.
Last year.
That has nothing
but
to
you're
do.
projecting. You're projecting what Jordan Davis is going to do because his numbers weren't near what Nakobe Dean's numbers were. So if you're willing to project, why won't you project Nakobe Dean be able to do in the NFL what he did in college? You got your Mac guys here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB YouTube channel. Please hit that like button. Go ahead, hit it right now. Give us some love. We could use it. We're working hard. We earned it for you. We got the show off on time today. You got no complaints, streaming fans of Birds 365.
Oh, they have complaints, Jody. Trust me, they have complaints.
They can, but they're not justified today. Other days, yeah, they can kind of get away with it. And they should not be complaining about the fact that we've added our bud Ed Kracz into the mix, the Eagle Maven from Sports Illustrated. All right, I'm going with both of you guys here. I'm enjoying the top 25 list you got out on the Eagles. Best football players, a little different than some other outlets that are doing most important players. You guys just went straight best football players. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you got halfway through your list to number 13 today, and you've got quarterback Jalen Hurts, correct?
That is correct. It's the perfect day. It seems like Jalen Hurts week. Lucky number 13, Ed Kracz, Jalen Hurts. And just to let everybody know, if we're up to Ed, he'd be higher than that. So blame me for Jalen playing down the list. What did I have Jalen at? It's like 17, somewhere in there.
No, John, you had him at 19.
Yeah, 19, somewhere.
That's
yeah.
I had him
a little.
9. I had him in the top 10.
There's a lot of good players on this. A lot of good football players on this team. A lot of good football. Now, our buddy Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philadelphia is doing a top 25 list, but his top 25 list is most important Eagles players.
Right.
Now, if I were doing that, Ed, I'd have Jalen number 1, as I imagine he's going to have Jalen number 1. But best pure football players, hey, the Eagles got a good roster now. Howie Roseman deserves a lot of credit, and people are going to see that as we get into their top 12. A lot of good football players on this team.
Yeah, you mentioned pure football players. I had Jake Elliott on my list at number 21, which gave him some votes. Actually, I might have had him a little higher, but I think he finished 21 on our list because you didn't have him on your list, John.
Yeah, and unless you're Justin Tucker, I hold being a kicker against you. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's a great kicker, but yeah, I have a tough time putting kickers in the list of top 25 players.
Yeah. See, I think
here's where I'm going to have an issue with both of you guys. And for those who don't know, didn't see last time we had Ed on, John and Ed each ranked their top 25. Then they divided between the two to come up with their list. So they balanced it out between themselves. So my problem will be with both of you guys. If we're going backwards, because I could pretty much tell you who the top 12 are going to be, the 12 best players who are left, who you haven't gotten to yet. What order they're in, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out for you guys. Should be fun. But I could tell you who the 12 are. So going backwards, Jalen at 13. You had Avonte at 14. Landon Dickerson at 15. Miles at 16. TJ Edwards, 17. 18 was Jordan Davis. 19 was Bradbury. 20 was Isaac Seumalo. 21, you mentioned Jake Elliott. 22 was Quez Watkins. 23, Kaiser White. 24, Derek Barnett. 25, Jake Driscoll. Which means if he's not in the top 12, which I don't think he's going to be in the top 12, you do not have Nakobe Dean on this list. Correct?
We can't give that away. Sure we can. No, he's not on the list.
You're going to put him in your top 12?
No, he's not on the list. No. And he shouldn't be on the list.
Well,
Excuse me?
I had him on my list, Jody.
Good for you, Kracz.
Ed, I think, Ed, what'd you have him, 24?
I had him 24, 25, but because of the way the point system worked, he did not make the top 25, but he was on my list ahead of Derek Barnett.
He might be on the top 25 next year. I mean, I had a tough time putting Jordan Davis on the top 25 because he hasn't done anything. But he's got so much talent. I put him on the list.
It wasn't like he was 25 or 24 or 23 or 22 or 21 or 20 or 19. You got him at 18. What do you mean you had a hard time putting him on the list?
Because I had a hard time putting him on the list, but that's how much I think of the particular player and the projection. We're talking, Jody, I know you like the player. We're talking about an undersized third-round pick. I have difficulties, like when we're talking about Jalen Hurts at number 13, and we'll get back to that in a second. Take a look at Kaiser White and where he is, and James Bradbury and where he is. Now, they haven't done it in Philadelphia. James Bradbury even more than Kaiser White. That's a former Pro Bowl player. Now, I how do I put Jalen Hurts, say that he's better at what he does than James Bradbury is at what he does? That to me is a difficult conversation. So any rookie is difficult to put me on the list of a good team. The Eagles are a good team. Now, maybe on a bad team or a team that is, bottom 5, maybe it becomes a little bit easier. For me personally, it's tough to put rookies at all, but there's a big difference between the 13th overall pick and a third-round undersized linebacker who's got proven players in front of him, by the way. I got to see it first.
Okay. All I'm telling you is, and will it be fair when the season is over and done with, can we all sit down and objectively say what was contributed on the field that Nakobe Dean is going to be a top 25 player for the
possible? From my part, it's certainly possible.
I'd be willing to bet damn good money that the possible becomes.
Yeah,
definite.
but we're talking like when I wrote about, because I did the Jordan Davis story, and what I wrote, I think what I wrote is, next year at this time, you're probably going to be looking at 18 and saying that's quaint, like, that's way undervaluing Jordan Davis. He's going to be a potential top 10. Maybe the same thing happens with Nakobe Dean, but again, you got to see it. You're a production guy, Jody. You got to see it. They haven't done anything.
Production. He had more production in college than any player in the National Football.
Yeah, but that's college. Last year. That has nothing to do.
You're projecting what Jordan Davis is going to do, because his numbers weren't near what Nakobe Dean's numbers were. So if you're willing to project, why won't you project Nakobe Dean be able to do in the NFL what he did in college?
Well,
yeah, I can just say I think Jordan Davis is going to have more of a role than Nakobe Dean.
I don't.
At least I think initially, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Nakobe Dean. Because like John said, there are players ahead of him, and nothing's going to be handed to him.
I think don't the Eagles have those guys named Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox ahead of?
But they
Jordan
have
Davis?
more. The defensive line, they use more of the rotation, though.
Yeah,
so Jordan Davis is going to see his time. I'm not sure how much they're going to rotate their linebackers. Now they might, put Nakobe Dean in there for a play or, 2, and then let him grow into a role. But the defensive line is notoriously rotated. So he's your third tackle, your third defensive tackle, and I think that's reflected in the list because Javon Hargrave was higher, I think, right? And Fletcher still has not been revealed yet, but he's the third guy. I mean, Milton Williams is also. I gave some thought to putting Milton Williams in there because I think he is a very good player. He had a very good rookie year, but I just think Jordan Davis is going to be your third defensive tackle right out of the gate, and they're going to move Milton Williams around, and they're going to rotate Williams in there too. But I think Davis is going to play quite a bit, and Jonathan Gannon even told us that he's going to be a 3-down player.
Well, eventually, eventually they hope. I don't think he's going to be a 3-down player right off the bat.
Yeah, he can't be, not with Cox and Hargrave.
But I think the hope is eventually turns into that 3-down player, and we'll see. I don't even think he has to, but that's just my personal opinion. You'd like to see it, but rookies need time to grow, and I think Nakobe's in a good situation where he'll get an opportunity to grow. Last year, the same type of thing happened in the fact that, they're trying to throw out Eric Wilson out there, who was, terrible. And it was a mistake. And all of a sudden they said, well, let's start taking a look at TJ and Davion Taylor. Alex Singleton as well was in the mix. And, all of a sudden TJ started to play well, and bang, he's on the field. I think Nakobe Dean will have that same opportunity. You mix in, if he's better than Kaiser White, you play him. But maybe it's more the second half of the season. Maybe it's week 5, week 6. Maybe it's a little bit earlier. But I think it's going to be sticking the toes in the pool. I don't think they're throwing them in the deep end week 1. That's how I look at where Nakobe. And plus, we haven't even talked about the health issues. And you go all the way back to the draft, guys, and how we said, no, he's fine. He's fine. Well, he didn't do much in OTAs. They said he'd be out there. He was out there. But remember,
who did a lot in OTAs, John?
No, well, yeah, part of that is there's no teamwork. But we were only out there for 2 practices, an hour and a half total. But I got to tell you, the first practice, and it was TJ and Kaiser, and then it was Nakobe and Davion. Now, I think Nakobe was actually on the 3rd team. They started him a little bit slower, but he was out there. And then the second practice, he wasn't even out there. They were starting to look at the overhang players, as Jonathan got it. So it was Barnett, it was Patrick Johnson, it was Kyron Johnson. So I don't even know if he's healthy on top of that. And I don't even know if he's going to be fully healthy from this pec issue week 1. So that plays into it as well. But yeah, after the season, Jody, I said the same thing about Jordan Davis. Hopefully Nakobe Dean's like 15, hopefully he makes a splash, but I can't put a 3rd round pick in the top 25 of this team.
So you let where they were drafted dictate to you more so than what they did on the collegiate football level.
Well, part of it is, again, if what, the greatest college football player, some people will argue, could be Tim Tebow. Okay, who cares? At the SEC level, as a college football player, and it's still astonishing to me to this day that he was a 1st round pick. But he was a 1st round pick because people bought into it. People bought into his success at Florida, and he was one of the greatest college football players of all time. This is a different level. It is more difficult to play at this level, especially when you have some of the traits that Nakobe has that didn't allow him to be drafted where his production level should have put him at. If that makes sense.
I say shame on the other 31 teams in the National Football League. And kudos to the Eagles for getting that kind of a talent where they got him in the draft.
And let's not forget the Eagles didn't think he'd be sitting there, when, what was it, number 82 or 83 when he came?
83. No, they wanted him at 51, but they wanted Cam just a little bit more.
There was no way. Going into the draft, there's no way. That's why they signed Hassan Reddick and Kaiser White, 2 very, very good veterans, in my opinion. Kaiser White had 144 tackles last year. Now I know, the Chargers defense wasn't that good, but he is very active. I think he's very good at covering tight ends, which was a problem for this defense last year. Tight ends just got the better of the Eagles all season long. And the Eagles didn't think they were going to be getting a linebacker in the draft. Now, maybe they thought they'd get Kyron Johnson where they did in the 6th round, but they did not think Nakobe Dean would be sitting there. They had rebuilt this linebacker group with that in mind. So Nakobe Dean was just kind of the cherry on top of the cake. And he's a guy that, and why I had him on my list, but not real high, was just because I just don't know what kind of role we're going to see for him this year. Especially early on. I mean, he's going to have to come in, prove himself. And John makes a good point with the health. He could be one of those players that they manage throughout camp where he's not practicing every day. And then how does that impact a rookie? We saw that with Landon Dickerson. He didn't have a lot of time in camp last year. He was put on the PUP list once training camp started, and he was on there for a month, came off, I think, August 30th, and then he was inactive for the first game, but then he obviously had a big role. Granted, it's a different position than linebacker, but still, I think the Eagles are going to manage Nakobe Dean, and they're going to try to keep that pec or that shoulder. You know, he's had some shoulder issues. They're going to try to keep him as healthy as he can be. I don't think we're going to see him out there practicing every day. I think he's going to be managed, and I think that will delay kind of the start to his career.
What we don't know about, you're right. We never know about injuries. How the hell can we know? We don't have a crystal ball to look into. Injuries can go other ways, though. Like you said about Landon Dickerson. Oh, he's not even practicing. Oh, he's on the PUP list. Oh, why'd we take him in the second round? Uh-oh, here goes injuries to other guys on the offensive line. Right. Dickerson gets slotted in there, and he cracks you guys top 15, right? As a guy who we didn't know anything about in camp, and all of a sudden now he's on your top 15 list. What happens if Kaiser White gets hurt?
That's exactly what I think the hope is. I mean, that's exactly – I wouldn't have had Landon on the top 25 list last year coming into the season, just like I don't have Cam Jurgens on the top 25 list, and he's the 51st overall pick. There's not going to be a role for him, barring injury, so that factors into it. But even if Jason Kelce retired and they picked Cam Jurgens to start at center, I wouldn't have him on the top 25 list. I mean, it's really good.
But John, where did you have Davis?
Probably 16, 15, 16. I think Ed had him a little bit lower. Do you have the voting there? I forget. I'm getting.
I don't have it in front of me, but
that's why I question when you say I couldn't put him on the list. But you put Davis at 16?
Because I think more of Jordan Davis than Nakobe Dean. I think more of Jordan Davis than Cam Jurgens. And by the way, so does the rest of the NFL. One guy is the 13th pick in the draft. And by the way,
if you're going to tell me that you're going to make your list off the draft, okay, fine, I understand. I would put more into it than that.
No, I'm telling you, anybody who's listening to this show, and you should be listening to this show, Jody, knows how much I think of Jordan Davis as a player before the draft even started, when I said the Eagles are probably going to take him, probably going to get trade up. Yeah, I'm patting myself on the back to take him. I think he is a difference maker. I think he is a Vita Vea type player. I think there is maybe 10 players a year that come into the NFL with the kind of potential of Jordan Davis. That's not an insult to Cam Jurgens or Nakobe Dean. I think he is a top-tier potential all-pro-like player, and I still have difficulty putting rookies on that list, but he's different to me than those guys. And yeah, part of it is, and the NFL is telling you by where he's slotted that he's different from those guys. They don't always get it right, and they might get it wrong with Jordan Davis, but potential-wise, he might be the best 6'6", 345-pound athlete to ever play in the NFL at the defensive tackle position. I mean, that's the kind of physical attributes he has. And you're talking about an undersized linebacker. I'm sorry, Jody, there's a difference. There's a difference.
John, there's a significant difference. I'm not going to judge anybody being undersized until I see him play in the National Football League. I don't care what the prototypical
Okay, what about the athleticism for the position?
Aaron Donald was drafted at number 13 when John McMullen said he should have been drafted in the top 5. Why? Because he was undersized. So I don't give a shit if a guy is undersized.
But he was still
if he's a great
13,
player, plain
Jody.
and simple.
But he was still number 13, even though he was undersized. What about the athleticism part of it? Nakobe Dean wasn't the most athletic linebacker on Georgia. He was the third most athletic linebacker on Georgia. Jordan Davis is the most athletic 6'6", 340-pound player this league has ever seen. Never mind Georgia, never mind the Eagles. The entire National Football League has never seen a defensive tackle put up the type of physical traits that he did with the combine and all the drills and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you don't believe in that, that's fine, but that's why where he is. That's why he's where he is as a project, and people think he's projecting him to be a dominant
Right.
player.
And
that's the difference.
To this day, you have to look at that stuff, but it just disappears as soon as he has a season in the National Football League. Jordan Davis will have the season he has, and he will produce to the level that he produces. Nakobe Dean will have the season he has, and he'll produce to the level he's going to produce. What they did in the combine, what their size is, how athletic they are, becomes completely irrelevant once you have something to judge, and that's actual performance on the National Football League field. Right now, you're projecting, I'm projecting, Ed's projecting. We're all just projecting because neither one of us played down in the league. But once they play, the fact that he high jumped in Indianapolis in shorts doesn't mean a flying you know what.
Well, it helped Aaron Donald
now, but it's going to go by the boards within the next 6 months.
Well, if you look at college production, okay, you mentioned college production to Judge Dean and Davis. There's the perception that a lot of Dean's production and numbers were put up because of what Davis was able to do in front of him. Occupy blockers, let Dean flow and make plays. So while the numbers didn't turn up on the stat sheet for Davis, and they might not this year either because of just the way he plays, the way he's able to occupy two, and Brandon Graham even said hopefully 3 blockers, that frees up other guys to make plays. And to me, that if you're looking at college, and I know Dean had a great college career numbers-wise, but I think a lot of that, you have to look at the guys in front of him, guys like Jordan Davis, who helped him do that. And I think that's what allowed him to excel as an undersized linebacker. Now, he's got great traits. He's got great speed. He's got great instincts. And we'll see how that manifests itself when Jordan Davis isn't in the game and Nakobe Dean is in the game. But I think Davis, by the way he's able to occupy blockers, will benefit that second level of the defense.
Yeah, and Jody and I have been talking. That's one of my concerns with Jordan Davis, because a lot of his impact doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and it might be disappointing. And I use that word esoteric all the time when you're making other players better because you're engulfing blockers. And by the way, it's not just supposed to be TJ and Nakobe and Kaiser White, but also the edge rushers. It's supposed to make things easier for Hassan, Reddick, and Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham, as Brandon mentioned. And hopefully, it plays out. But that's what the Eagles are looking for when it comes to Jordan Davis. And by the way, it's not an insult to Nakobe Dean. Hopefully he's in a similar situation that he was in Georgia when he had Jordan Davis in front of him, and he still has Jordan Davis in front of him. Man. And he does have this high football IQ, and he does have these great instincts. And I look at TJ Edwards as similar undrafted guy who was great in college, by the way. People don't realize he was, an All-American. He was second in the Butkus Award, which Nakobe won back when he was with Wisconsin. But he couldn't run, right? 4.78, I think, was the 40 time. So you have all this college production, and he doesn't even get drafted. TJ Edwards, I'm talking about. But he comes into the NFL. He starts 9th on the depth chart, TJ said, what he got here. And he turns out to be the team's best linebacker. But it took a while. And he turned out to be the team's best linebacker because of his football instincts, his football IQ. And oh, by the way, he kept working on it. And he's much faster than 4.78. He's never going to be a 4.4 guy. But so Nakobe Dean's got an opportunity to be a very, very good player in this league. But yeah, I mean, college production is not the be all end all. And the NFL is not going to pay attention and say, okay, this kid was great at college. And sometimes when they do that, Tim Tebow again, sometimes they get it wrong when they just rely on that. Even at Georgia, even at Alabama, if you just rely on college production, you're probably going to get it wrong. But that's just mine.
Yeah. John, you're making my argument for me. Thank you very much. TJ Edwards, another one who was underdrafted. Had you looked at the college production, you could have got your hands on a starting linebacker in the National Football
you just
League.
took out the
So
one
why
guy.
would I not give Nakobe Dean that same kind of thing when he's only a third-round draft pick? You mean he was only taken in the third round? I don't care where he was taken. I have my evaluation of how good the player's going to be. And other teams, kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles for seeing what they saw in TJ Edwards, but other teams could have got their hands on TJ Edwards too if they watched his college tape.
Did you hear the Tim Tebow part of the conversation as well? The SEC is littered with players who had tremendous college production and did nothing at the professional level. Michael Sam, co-SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Big story because he was, I believe, the first draft pick to come out as gay. But he was a hell of a college football player. Led the nation in sacks. Again, co-SEC Defensive Player of the Year, but he was 6'2", and he didn't have long arms. And he didn't project as an edge rusher at the pro level, and he wasn't fast enough to move the linebacker. He couldn't play. I remember Dontarius Thomas from Auburn. He was a 4-star student. He ran a 4.4. I remember the Vikings told me, this guy's going to be the best coverage linebacker in football. He's so smart. He was awful. He was one of the worst coverage linebackers I've ever seen. He just didn't have a feel for the game. My point, Jody, is there's 100 examples in one direction, 100 examples in the other direction, where I think Nakobe and TJ match up, and I think it's a positive. Football IQ instincts. Football IQ instincts. And if you have the players around you, and Nakobe Dean certainly had the players around him at Georgia, hopefully he'll have them here at Philadelphia. That means he's got a chance. He's got a chance. It's not an insult, though, to say last smack dab day one, you're not in the top 25 of a team that has the 7th best roster in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. Do you think that's an insult? Let's let Ed say.
Sorry, Ed, I just got to get this in.
Go.
Here's where I come to the defense of Nakobe Dean. He's going to be better than the entire last 5, maybe the last 7 or 8 that you guys have on the list. Jake Driscoll's started, a handful of games in the National Football League? I don't think he's starting this year. I think Isaac Seumalo, if he stays healthy, which we know he never does, is going to get plugged in to the right guard. Jake Driscoll's going to have a good time sitting on the bench this year. He's not going to play. Nakobe Dean's going to play, and you got Jake Driscoll in at number 25. So, yes, I think you did a disservice to him.
Well, Jack has played. Jack's from the SEC. Jack was
and Jack played, but you got, again, we're back to Davis is ranked higher, and he's never played it down. So there is some projection involved in your list, and I'm projecting Nakobe Dean to step in, to play, to put up stats, to help the Eagles win games, whereas for this upcoming season, I think Jack Driscoll's going to have a good time sitting on the bench for the Eagles.
Nakobe Dean to Jordan Davis, you could just as easily compare Nakobe Dean to Grant Calcaterra as a 3rd-round pick versus a 6th-round pick, or Kyron Johnson. Why is Nakobe Dean thought to be better than those guys? Not only because of his production in college, but because he was selected in the 3rd round. They were selected on day 3. You're talking about a top 13 pick in the NFL draft and saying, oh, that's no difference than a guy who slid to the 3rd round.
I know you haven't gotten to him yet. Where was Jason Kelsey drafted?
6th round.
Okay. Well, and at some point, where you're drafted goes by the wayside. That you just purely judge what the guy does in the National Football League.
And when Nakobe's got 4 All-Pros on the resume, I'll have him really high on the list, Jody. Really high. Until he gets those
where was Jack Driscoll drafted?
4th round.
4th round.
4th round, okay.
But he has started 13 games in 2 years. 20, and he's played in 20 games, okay, in what, two seasons. So that's 33 games. He's played in 20 of those, and he's made 13 starts. He's a valuable reserve on this team. Even if he doesn't start, he is a very key backup. He's your first guy off the bench if there's an injury. And who knows, maybe he wins that right guard spot from Isaac Seumalo. I don't think so. I don't think John thinks so. But he's a valuable reserve. He's proven to be that. And even though I didn't have Driscoll on my top 25, I had Nakobe Dean in there, and John had Driscoll, I think, 24 or wherever. He's valuable, and I can see value in being in the top 25 if you're the guy, especially the Eagles' offensive line, which hasn't stayed healthy all year, and rarely do offensive lines all stay healthy through the course of 16, 17 games now. So you need depth, and Jack Driscoll is a very, very good depth piece, and he's very valuable to have on this roster. So I don't have a big complaint with him being in the top 25, down at number 25.
Yeah,
because
and back with Jack, I mean, the thing with me and Jack and why I put him on the list, he not only played, he played well. I mean, he played well, and by the way, I didn't expect it, to be honest. I thought he didn't play that well as a rookie at right tackle, and he came in as a right tackle, a natural right tackle. Then all of a sudden he's got to play right guard. You say, well, this is going to be ugly. And it wasn't. He played really, really well to the point the Eagles think maybe he's going to be better long-term inside. That wasn't the original plan. And I think Pro Football Focus had him graded number 20 in the entire league as a guard last year. So you think about that. There's 32 teams, right? So that means there's 64 starting guards in this league. Jack Driscoll was 20. 20. Now, part of that is Jeff Stoutman. No doubt about it, him getting players up, and he's had a tremendous history of that. And look, I think if he played more, that probably regresses a little bit back to the mean. People start game planning you a little bit better. And he's certainly got the injury issues, which are real, and you got to throw them in the mix. But that guy played really, really well when given the opportunity. I think he belongs on the list. Yeah, but you know, and 25 is 25 where it is.
Right.
There's 22 starters.
Because I'm as big a fan of Nakobe Dean as I am. Somebody's got to go. So if he's 25, he's got to be the guy who's the limit. I got no problems if you want to keep Driscoll and drop Derek Barnett. You know that. I got no problem taking Barnett off the top.
Well, I know nobody has any problem taking Derek off the list.
He wasn't on my list either.
But he's a good football player.
Yeah.
He's a good football player. Just not as good as he was supposed to.
Jody, would you have put Kaiser White behind Nakobe Dean at this point?
Absolutely.
You would. Okay.
Ask me about the Eagles' other linebacker.
TJ?
I would put Nakobe Dean ahead of TJ
Yeah.
Edwards. And I know how good a season Edwards has last night. I'm harping on production. Oh, TJ gave you a ton of production last year. I think that Nakobe Dean steps in and is the best.
You like the player. There's nothing wrong with
linebacker.
that. There's nothing wrong with that. You clearly like the player. You thought he should have been a first-round pick.
Correct.
I think even before it, and if you go back to the pre-draft process, guys, and we got to get Ed out of here. Apologize in the middle of Jody and I's argument. But if you go back to the pre-draft process, you know, most of the mock drafts, they had Devin Lloyd going first at linebacker, Nakobe going second, both as first-round picks. But as you got later into it and you got more of the NFL scouts and they're talking to us and all that kind of stuff, then it became, man, this guy might not be a first-round pick. He might bridge into the second round.
Because God forbid the measurables didn't come back the way you wanted at the combine.
That's part of it. But and Jody, you might remember, I kept asking, I think it was Karlaftis, it was Nakobe Dean, and there was a third player I can't remember, who I sort of got the feel were dropping a little bit. And I said on the show, I said, Nakobe's not going to be a first-round pick. I had no idea about the injuries, and that, you know, he should have been a second-round pick without the injuries. But nobody has any idea of that. And that's why he fell into the third round. But yeah, I mean, it's 5'11". I mean, it's tough. You know, Avonte Maddox was 14th on our list. Avonte was a terrible outside corner when the Eagles tried to play him there. Terrible. Terrible. He's one of the best nickel corners in the game. Why is he terrible outside and he's great inside? Part of it is measurables. I mean, it does matter. Ed?
Yeah, well, listen, here's what I think we should do. I think when the season's over, the three of us should put down our top 25 Eagles players, the best players after the season's over.
Right.
And we'll see where Nakobe is. We'll see where TJ is.
See where Jordan is.
We'll see where Jordan. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly. I'll put it in my little story idea envelope, and I'll pull it out after the Eagles win the Super Bowl in February. I mean,
all right, Ed, we got to let you go, but I got to ask you one question before we go, because you, like me, I see you're a coffee guy. McMullen drinks water when he's on the air, but I still like to drink coffee. Have you been drinking Black Rifle coffee today?
Oh, oof.
You know, a friend of mine in Indianapolis, I go on his show every Saturday. He just bought me a bag of Black Rifle and sent it to me. And it's a big sponsor of his show.
You're canceled, Ed. You're canceled.
You are going to get canceled. You shouldn't admit to that here on Birds 365.
Well, I just had it like 2 weekends ago. He sent it to me.
I was just kidding. This was supposed to be a joke.
Well,
this wasn't supposed to be. Yes, I have my Black Rifle coffee right here, right now.
No, I didn't know the background of Black Rifle. He's like, it's a sponsor. And he asked me one time on the show, do you drink? And I said, I never have. And he said, I'm going to send you a bag. He sent me a bag. And you know what? I thought
was it good?
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah,
it could be.
I have never had it. I don't think I ever will. And the actual name is like not good, but you might be able to get away with it. But when part of their offerings are AK-47 espresso,
I know.
Silencer smooth,
and
murdered out. That's a flavor, murdered out.
I didn't know any of that.
And it's now a major sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. What the
that's
hell?
That's not good. I just thought it was Black Rifle. I didn't know there was all these different brands and varieties of it. But I think
which one did you get? Did you just get plain, or did he send you off the murdered out blend?
No, I didn't get anything that I thought that I found too offensive. I must have gotten just the plain, but it was not bad. And I think when you buy a bag, a portion of it goes to the military,
to the NRA. Yeah, way to go.
It might be the NRA. But listen, like I said, I just heard the advertisement and he asked me. I said, sure. And he sent me a bag. What am I going to do? Send it back? I drank it. It was not bad.
Yeah.
Will I buy it again now? Probably not.
Yeah.
God damn it. That's why we love you, Kracz. You come on. You don't complain about me and John screaming at each other. You pump the products. You're the best, Ed Kracz.
You are the best.
I'm not pumping the products. I'm not telling people to buy it. I'm just saying.
There we go. See, now there is an example of an excellent trait, Jody. There's Ed Kracz backtracking like one of the greatest cornerbacks.
When in doubt, boom, do that 180. Good job, Kracz.
Yeah, I think I might make the top 10 list after the season.
Yeah. Look at him.
Kind of back pedal.
He just opened his hips and had a tremendous back pedal. There was Ed Kracz.
Spin and turn.
Yeah.
Eddie, good stuff. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.